Well, hello there again. Hello again. Apparently my video on the Swedish prog rock scene, psychedelic jazz rock scene was cut short. So I have to make a part 2. And this is what you're watching. Let's just pick up the thread and go ahead with the pile of records. And I would like to present to you Träd, Gräs och Stenar, a Swedish wild psychedelic free jamming band from the 60s and 70s. This is actually a new release, a live recording from 1970 which never saw light in its time. It's a double record set on Subliminal Records, which I showed you the label on the last video. Let me try to pull out the record. It's a gatefold sleeve, but I haven't removed the shrink wrap. But both LPs come in printed inner sleeves. If you're into spacey jams and wild psychedelia, I recommend Trä, Gräs and Stenar, which by the way means trees, grass and stones in English. This vinyl is on wonderful red black splatter vinyl. I'm not too keen on colored editions myself, but I think this only was released in this color. I know that black is a color, but other colors than black I'm not too keen on. I'm not a collector, but if that's the only choice, I'll buy them. This is affordable, I think, and you can find it on Discogs. I don't know whether you'll find it in any record stores outside Sweden. I was lucky to find this in Norway just a couple of years back. It was released in 2011. Very recommendable if you're into acidy, free space jam, wild psychedelia. Träd, Gräs och Stenar. Then, next up is Solar Plexus, a Swedish jazz rock band from the 70s, with Tommy Slim Borgud on drums, a very fine drummer, and Tommy Körberg on vocals, very famous vocalist who has done a lot of other things than rock. This is on the wonderful Harvest label design which I love, and yes, they had many fine releases in England and in Sweden and Germany. Solar Plexus sang in both Swedish and English. They were not too concerned on breaking ground outside Sweden, I think, because let's face it, Swedish and Norwegian are small languages. Not too many people who speak Swedish or Norwegian. Next up is Shaggy. This is a rather heavy rock band from the mid-70s. This was released in 1975. Shaggy, the album was called Lessons for Beginners. And this should actually have either it's a printed inner sleeve or a lyric sheet. I don't remember. Unfortunately, mine is missing. But the album is in pristine condition on the Royal label. It has never been re-released officially. I think there's a bootleg on CD, compact disc, but the vinyl has never seen any reissue, and this is very rare and expensive as hell, unfortunately. But if you like deep purplish, heavy rock, progressive rock sounds, you should check them out. I think there are a couple of songs on YouTube. Very recommendable. high quality musicianship and well produced. Another Swedish artist called Pug Rogefeldt. This is his debut album from 1969. And the album is called Ja, det är det. In English, Yes It Is. This is a funny psychedelic rock album. All the lyrics are in Swedish, but still, I think, enjoyable to international audience. This original comes with a nice booklet inside with the lyrics and some scribbling from Pug Rogefeldt himself. And on drums here you find Jan Karlsson from Hansen and Karlsson and Jojje Wadenius from Made in Sweden, which I'll show later on. This was released on the Metronome label, which I believe set up a branch in Sweden. I think it was originally a German label which released a lot of krautrock albums. A nice one there. Whimsical, psychedelic rock pop. Next up is November, the power trio, who sang in Swedish only. Very heavy rock, blues rock oriented. A very fine album indeed, and they made a couple of more albums after this, which I unfortunately haven't got in my possession yet. On the Sonnet label there, as you might have seen, with the trumpet in the center. I really love that label and that label design. I think Sonnet was, I don't know which country it was originally, but they had a branch in both Denmark and Sweden and released quite a lot of experimental acts there. Well, now over to something else, a band called Made in Sweden, which consisted of Tommy Borgud, which I mentioned from Solar Plexus, Jojje Wadenius, who played bass on Pug Rogefeldt's album, and Bo Häggström, a very fine bassist. This power trio played rock with blues and jazz influences and a lot of instrumentals, but also some vocals. Their first album was also released on the Sonnet label with the trumpet. Very nice album indeed, with for instance Peter Gunn and A Day in the Life, a cover version of the Beatles' Day in the Life, instrumental version. Very fine instrumentalists. The next album was a little bit more psychedelic. It was called Snakes in a Hole. Psychedelic cover, as you can see, with a nice gatefold spread. The band themselves inside. Sven Asmussen, a famous Danish violinist, jazz violinist, played on a couple of tracks here, and they covered Lady Lay. Also on the Sonnet label. These are becoming quite expensive actually, especially this album. I think it sold poorly. Their third album was a live album, also on the Sonnet label, called Live at the Golden Circle, which was a famous club in Sweden. I think it was Stockholm. Also on the Sonnet label, single cover here. And I was quite lucky to find this pristine condition album in Gothenburg last summer. It made me very happy. The last album from Made in Sweden before they broke up was called Made in England. They tried to break through commercially and went to England and recorded this album there. In England it was issued as Mad River with an alternative cover, but this is the Swedish version, or the Scandinavian, also on the Sonnet label. And here there are some string and brass arrangements as well, overdubbed to the trio's own instruments. A very fine album, well produced. Of course the success didn't come, and they broke up, and some years later Jojje Wadenius, after a short stint with Blood, Sweat and Tears, started and regrouped Made in Sweden. This was in 1975, and they released an album called Where Do We Begin? This is an entirely new band. Only Jojje Wadenius left from the original lineup. Tommy Körberg sings on this, so it's more vocal oriented and more in the jazz rock fusion vein. It's not my favorite album, but it's quite enjoyable. Nice original printed in the sleeve with the band and the lyrics. For those who like jazz rock, Pekka Pohjola and Wlodek Gulgowski plays on this. I think it's bass and keyboards, they too played. On the Polydor label. The Finnish edition was released on the Love label, which I would love to have, but unfortunately I don't. But the music's the same, anyway. Yes, that was Made in Sweden. A fine trio. Last album I'll show is another exceptional keyboard player, Merit Hemmingsson, Swedish female Hammond organ player. This is I think her first solo album called Huva, which I don't know what means. I think it's a Swedish saying, sorry. A nice gatefold spread, and with the likes of Jojje Wadenius on bass and Tony Slim Borgud on drums. This consists of Swedish folk songs arranged in a jazz rock, psychedelic prog rock vein. Very enjoyable, and it was released on the Columbia label. Yes. I don't think it was released outside Sweden, but nevertheless, Made in Sweden, yes. Very nice album from a fine musician, Merit Hemmingsson, Huva. Well, let's just leave it there. Well, that's all I had time, or all I had to show. I don't know what my next video will be about, but I'll find out that soon. If you like this video and the first part, please press the like button, give me some comments if there are things you would like me to change, or any comments on how to improve my videos, please do tell me. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so if you like to. Well, thanks for now, bye bye.